All systems go. Clear for liftoff. What's up, everyone? Tamboline here, a.k.a. ToeTagginTambo, back for another edition of the Monday Night Football Showdown show here on the SHIPIT Nation YouTube station. Got my boys with me as always. Hoop, Title, bring them in here in a minute. But first, make sure you smash that like on the way in. Make sure you're subscribed. When we do get to 9,000 subscribers, and we're oh so close, we are giving away the $549 6-month all-access with Shiptimizer package. So get in there. Make sure you're subscribed. It's a little button at the bottom. Hit the thumbs up, not the heart, so make sure you do that. And we're going to discuss all things Houston Texans at the Dallas Cowboys. Another interesting game here. Hoop, I'm going to bring you in first, though, man. Week 11, still rolling here. If you didn't have the best day yesterday, we give it all back today and more. What's going on, my friend? How you doing?
Yeah, I mean, not the most exciting game. Obviously, the Cowboys are kind of in a free fall right now, and Texans looking to bounce back after losing to the Lions last week. Lowish total. Dallas only projected to score 16, 17 points. Cooper Rush, CeeDee Lamb. I guess he's technically questionable, but expected to play. But yeah, congratulations to you capping off a big weekend over here at SHIPIT Nation. I guess kind of started on, well, I mean, we can go all the way back to like last week. Title had the big NBA win on Tuesday, I believe, maybe Wednesday. And then Friday, I mean, I know a lot of people in our community and Discord took advantage of the free Jake Paul money that we were kind of talking about. So that kind of started the weekend. Saturday, solid MMA slate. Our guy got us the inside I guess not inside information, but did some digging and found out that Weidman fight was going to be canceled. And, I know a lot of people were able to make the pivot where others in the industry did not make the pivot off that fight. Marley got the live final seat, so congratulations to him. I had a good night. I mean, I was able to make the move, the switch, but didn't get the full throttle win, but was able to win some money. And then yesterday, I know your day could have been a little bit better. I mean, you ran pretty badly. I'm not even going to mention the guy that took you down in the qualifier. We're not even going to talk about it. But you were in a good position to win the qualifier. Fell a little short, but able to cash in on FanDuel for $40K and then hit the Showdown slate last night. So congratulations to you. Momentum starting to build here, and good things happen to good people, and we built a good community, and you're seeing a lot of people have success. Yeah,
a ton of members as well. Our guy, and also too, Marley hit the live final seed or the MMA championship seed. Our guy Degenerate 75 3 weeks in a row now, I think, winning a GPP. So just a lot of good things going across the board. Title, I'll bring you in, man. Pretty good week for you as well coming in. I had to catch up a little bit, at least get something under my belt. So could have been better, but I'm never complaining. It was a great day overall yesterday. We just broke it all down in the takedown breakdown, but I'll bring you in, Title. What's going on, man?
Yeah, congrats to you. You're signed behind you. Nobody cares. Work harder. Could have been easy for you to hang it up after that afternoon slate. Went to bed, just pissed. Got in the Showdown streets. Hey, if it was 5 years ago, Tambo, or whatever, I can't remember when Showdown was, but there wasn't always Showdown back in the day. And you'd be a little more sad. Awesome stuff. Showdown, main slate FanDuel, though, Sunday night game, your big boy hit. But hey, don't forget about that 7K Showdown stuff. A lot of members, big boy screenshots like Vegas Vitsy. I saw him in there, very sharp player, almost got the milli. I mean, what a crazy, crazy slate yesterday. Taysom Hill, oh goodness, what a insane stat line from him.
The Bourne call, man. We got the Bourne switch on the thing. We had that in Discord too. That was a nice one. And so the Jonnu Smith, the Taysom's we were it was what we said. Everyone was in the right spot. Most were on the wrong guys, unfortunately. But if you had Jonnu over Achane, you could have had both. You had Taysom over Kamara. You had Judy over Tillman. It was all the right spots, just other guys. And that's what later in the year is kind of like. So certainly love that. Yeah, 490Q tonight. Shout out to my boy Nades. I'm in that. So got some tickets there. I'm excited to fire off. Maybe I get it back to Nashville tonight, but we're going to talk all things Texans Cowboys. This is, I always tell people at the top, the reason I don't love this slate, so there's the spoiler, I don't love it, not just because it's bad teams. It's one of those ones that sets up that it's like, and maybe Hoop or Title can talk me out of it, but it just looks like it's all Texans. They're the better plays, and they're the better spot. They're up against a beat-up Cowboys team. So I don't know. Hoop, first grand scheme overview of the slate. What do you got with this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to make the argument against a Texans heavy approach. And, the problem is that's what everyone's going to be doing tonight because it just looks so good. And all the best plays are from the Texans. Dallas, obviously, without Dak Prescott, their offense is going to struggle the rest of the year. Cooper Rush, I don't think, again, I say it all the time, it's beating a dead horse. I don't think he's much of a downgrade in terms of winning football games to Dak Prescott, who's just terrible at actually winning in the NFL. But for fantasy purposes, it is a pretty big downgrade. And, he's 8K at the quarterback position. You can probably make the case for CeeDee Lamb if you want to play him up in the captain, but man, it just looks like a Texans heavy approach is very difficult. Even if you want it to go Cowboys heavy, where do you go? Who do you play? What's the route? I guess we can kind of discuss it, but man, it's it seems like you're making the case just to make the case. And, I'm personally not all about that. I don't think you guys are either, but we'll see. We'll see what you guys have to say about it. For me, it's going to be hard to get away from a Texans heavy approach tonight.
Yeah, I'm a big boy chopper now too, by the way. Nice. I like 100-weight chops. I always say how I'm playing for unique, but I do build in sets, and that lineup was just too good last night, so couldn't leave it out. But unfortunately, 100-weight chop. So hopefully tonight can get another W, but with a smaller chop title. I'll get your grand scheme overview. People are already asking about Trey Lance. This is how you know it's what some might say that's a good slate. For me, I say it's a bad one. It just puts more pieces to it. It gets a little bit annoying from that perspective. But what's your thoughts on this one? Grand scheme overview.
I think a lot of people go Houston, the studs, and it looks like more people go Dallas for value since there's a plethora of guys down there that will be rotating in. Zeke's relatively cheap, a bunch of wide receivers, and a lot of unknowns at the wide receiver position. But when you look at Houston value, where Houston is. They get back Nico Collins this week, so that takes out more so Xavier Hutchinson. Robert Woods didn't get as much work last week. John Mechie took over wide receiver 3. When you go look at the Dallas receiver room, there's a lot of unknowns. Hunter Lepke also will be out for him. He played the Dollar Tree version of Taysom Hill, lined up at tight end in the backfield, etc. So a couple of people will get boosts there. But how I see it, before even pulling up the slate, I expected 5-1 Texans, 4-2 Texans completely. I think 3-3 is going to be popular because of that value I mentioned down below, and then 4-2 Texans. So even 5-1, I think, will be a lot lower owned than people think. Again, because Houston value looks really tough. Then, of course, defense, Texans defense at 6,200. You don't see that every day.
Yeah, I think that's going to be part of it. I'll have roster construction stuff covered in the slate plan over at SHIPIT Nation. And I should note before we get into this real quick, 2 things are ending. One today is you can get in your first month, 50% off is $34.50 for all the content for a month, or you can pay $49.50 if you want Shiptimizer access. So start with that, and then I'll bring up the other one later because there also is a rest of season NFL/CFB package for $99 or $129. So that's basically it's 3 months for the price of one and change. It's definitely the best deal going to get in on this. And there's a ton left. Week 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, all the playoffs, Super Bowl, all the showdown slates, all the college football, just a ton of stuff. And even if you don't have college in your state, the NFL value is more than enough there as well. But I will say the stuff you brought up there makes a lot of sense. I think the only thing I see, and I did some preliminary builds, and I've got the other one up here in a second. I'll bring up too, the dry run. But 5-1 probably won't be as popular as the 4-2 and the 3-3. But people are fine with just playing that one cheap. I've seen lineups you can do 5-1 with just Aubrey, for example, and that's just it does fit enough of the studs on the other side where I think people at least have some interest in that. But let's look at the dry run hoop here. I got it up and see if you have anything else to add on this because we're going to go into captain in a second anyway. But just checking exposures, captain looks like it wants to go quarterback again. Stroud's price probably something to do with that. Mixon for sure, Nico Collins, Cooper Rush, and Tolbert a little bit make it up there, but it's Schultz, Collins, Mixon, Stroud with Cooper Rush 8%. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, kind of what you expected. Stroud, Mixon, and Nico Collins are going to be a majority of the captain today. There's just no way around it, and that's we're showing it here just through the dry run. So the first thing that kind of pops in my mind is all right, how can we play Texans captains and get a little bit different? Tank Dell, he's going to get some ownership, but he's one way that he's going to be substantially less owned than those other 3. It does to me look like Mixon for sure is going to get a ton. Stroud's going to get a ton. Nico Collins, I think there's some wiggle room to gain some leverage there. Coming off the injury, people might be a little bit hesitant. Again, he's going to get some ownership, there's no doubt, but maybe taking a more overweight stance on him compared to Mixon and Stroud. And the one thing is, like with the Dallas stuff, like we know Houston captain is going to be popular, but like CeeDee Lamb's going to get a little bit up there for sure. Cooper Rush is going to get a little bit up there for sure. So, one way that I'm potentially looking at going on the slate is just whacking all those guys out, getting rid of CeeDee Lamb, getting rid of Cooper Rush, just go full Texans. And again, it's not like a massive move in terms of like what percentage of ownership you're fading, but it all starts to add up. CD is going to get some, Cooper Rush is definitely going to get some. And then other guys along the way, we're showing, I think, Tolbert up there too. Like some other guys will as well. So I'm personally considering a very, very consolidated captain pool and then looking at some things to do in the flex to get different. I do think 4-2 in favor of Houston is going to be the most popular. Like, yes, 5-1 will get some ownership too, but people are still a little bit hesitant to go the all-in 5-1 sort of thing. So like Houston, 4-2 on the Dallas side will, in my opinion, will be the most popular build by far. It's not a hot take or anything by any means, but anything outside of that, I think will be a little bit different. The pricing is pretty soft, I'd say. Even, looking at CJ Stroud under 10K, Nico Collins 10-4, I think is definitely affordable. Tank Dell 9-4. Texans defense, I guess, is a talking point. It's been a while since we've seen in a priced up defense, and they're like 6,200 and showing some ownership. So that's definitely a talking point. But in terms of the captain, it's going to be tough to make the case for some of these Dallas guys. And curious to see what you guys have to say about the Dallas captain plays.
Yeah, before I bring you in title, I think that's the other thing. The 4-2 is just clear. If you go to the flex here, we already showed the captain, but if you go to the flex, Cooper Rush in almost 70%. And then like when you see Tolbert, 47%, you see Turpin, 25%, Dowdle 17, Aubrey 17, Ryan Flournoy, I think he's he's $200, 9%, Span Ford, 9%. Like it's definitely 4-2s that are going to be the most popular with a Houston captain. We got that much solved. It is nice to have that information going in. I just will say, as I kick it back to you, title, like that's the other tricky. I know I'm making fun of myself for chopping with 100 people last night. And you take it, move on. But like, even if you do get to a 5-1 on this slate, it's probably more duped than ever because it's like you're going to get the exact dudes in, and you think because it's Ryan Flournoy or Span Ford or something that you're different, but they're different in like the overall grand scheme. They're using those plays to make 5-1s and heavy 4-2s work. So you're almost jumping into something that seems less owned, but the overall build is more owned, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do still think it'll be at least half the ownership, if not more than 4-2s and 3-3s. What you're saying is I agree on, but that's like where I make easy pivots. All right, I'll go Jake Ferguson down to Brandon Aubrey. That'll eliminate maybe half. Ferguson down to Mechie, down to Tolbert. You don't want to just zero out and go 5-1 Texans is what you're saying. There will be plenty obvious builds.
That's what I'm saying, but most people buy clear. Like, again, that's why we do the dry run. I'm not saying 5-1s will definitely be way lower owned than 4-2s, maybe slightly more than usual, but not high. I'm saying your point can't really work in my example because if I'm stuck on Flournoy being my one, well, that's as low as I can go. So I'm saying your point is good. So that team's going to be just duped like crazy, but your point makes sense. If you can get to a 5-1 that lands on Dowdle, don't be afraid to just throw in Turpin and just chop it right up immediately. And that's, I'm with you on. I was trying to say that's what makes it trickier is people are going to want to jam the 5-1s with all the Houston dudes or as many as they can get, the dudes, and then be like, oh, I got a unique lineup because no one's playing Flournoy. The only people that are probably really playing him, and it can go for other examples as well, are kind of in the same build that you're in. So it makes it a little bit trickier for that too. Just another reason I don't love slates like this as much myself.
Yeah, I should have worked on my listening. What you said definitely makes sense, and I don't like that. Most 5-1s, Cowboys, like I want that Cowboy to be a skill position player or something that they can do something. They can score 11, 12. You can make pivots off of them. So for sure, I definitely don't want to punt Cowboys guy that gets 0 and then you just jam the 5 best Texans. I'm kind of with Hoop in terms of captain, though. It's hard for me to make cases for a lot of these guys. I know my favorite, Nico Collins. Dude's just a grown man. You get leverage off of Joe Mixon. I thought he could have came back last week. He feels like he'll be 100%. Nobody in the secondary can guard this guy. Give me all the Nico Collins in the world. Tank Dell, I'm definitely going to play him too because you're talking about double leverage. He leverages off the Mixon stuff and he leverages off the Nico Collins stuff. He is expensive at 9.4K. Like, he looks to be the most overpriced. You could argue CD Lamb for sure at 10.8, but besides that, like, I have Rico projected higher for 400 less. Pretty much the same. I have Cooper Rush and Tank Dell projected. That's a $1,400 difference. CJ a lot higher owned or projected. Nico a lot higher projected in that range. So Tank Dell has to go lower owned. I mean, why can't he go 102? And again, leverages off of Mixon ownership and Nico ownership. So I'm definitely in on Tank Dell. I'm in on Nico Collins. My favorite Cowboy is Jake Ferguson at captain, and it's mainly for the price and just hoping that's Cooper Rush's security blanket. Do I love it? No, but again, 5.8K. It's kind of like Will Dissly. I had a good amount of Will Dissly captain yesterday too because I just didn't like anyone really below the studs, and he's the only one that stood out. He'll be on the field a ton, right in the middle of the field for Cooper Rush. He can fall in the box once or twice. Do I love it? No, but I definitely don't love CD at 10.8. Like, I'm not saying fade him, but that's a big boy number. Defense is going to be locked in on him. I don't know, man. It feels really tough for me to get to CD. So I like Nico, Tank Dell, my two favorites. Going to play Ferg, going to play some Mixon, and I think I'm going to go CJ. He has enough guys to spread it out, but you're the quarterback guy, so talk to me about him.
Yeah, definitely interested in CJ. I just think it's, a spot where you kind of got to set your lineups up accordingly. And again, how different are those going to be unless you are mixing it? You're going to have to mix in the dudes that we'll get to when we talk about wide receiver, maybe the Cade Stovers of the world, something like that to shake it up just a little bit when you go to those ones. But my favorite of all of them before I go to Hoop is Tank Dell. Everyone, man, I've been trying to make Tank Dell work, so I know this will come across the wrong way. But the problem was, and what our Discord would blow up about and all the stuff on X and in the tidbits when I look at them and stuff like that, the whole point was he's not working because Nico Collins ain't out there. Look at T. Higgins last night. How does that work out? Yes, you still see Jamar Chase with 2 touchdowns on the docket, so you can give him that, no doubt. But it certainly helped. And Gesicki completely erased last night now that Higgins is back. But look at the offense. They're just bracketing up on Chase. He still made him work. He still made him pay. But that was a prime example. Tank Dell has been the guy that they've been all over. Now Nico Collins, you're not leaving Nico Collins open. Good luck, and that's why I'll have Nico Collins too. But Tank Dell leverages up everybody because I think the order is quite clear on that side. It's Mixon, Collins, Stroud, and Dell of the ownership order for that side. And then we know, to Hoop's point here in a second, probably like you're going to level up on these Texans, load up, I should say. So that's how you get a level up when you load up at Texans. So Hoop, go ahead, talk to us through your captains, anything over on the Dallas side if you got it.
Yeah, I mean, it'll definitely be Texans heavy approach, but I think you guys nailed like kind of how to do it. Like Nico Collins to me stands out as a very strong option. I'm hoping the ownership stays kind of where it is and doesn't inflate. Like 15 seems pretty realistic, and to me, it's easy to get over that number. Like going like 25, especially if you're going Texans heavy. Like for me, like I want to be way over on the Nico stuff for sure. 15%, it's easy to do it again if you're playing limited number of captains. But in terms of just straight up leverage, I mean, the Tank Dell play, I hope that ownership holds. It's showing like 5-6% in the captain. Like that's just to me like a really, really good play. And again, very simple to get way overweight, leverage off the Joe Mixon stuff, who he's the one that probably gets the most ownership. So for me, like personally, like I want definitely as much Nico as Joe Mixon, and then definitely a healthy dose of Tank Dell. And I'll be honest, man, like I'm struggling to make the case for these Dallas guys. And, maybe it is just going a cheaper one, like Title mentioned in Jake Ferguson. To me, it's going to be tough to get to CD Lamb at 10.8 in the captain, or not in not in the flex. Like I'll play him in the flex, but captain CD Lamb is 16.2. You're under 7K per spot after that. Like Cooper Rush, definitely don't want up there at 8K. And these shitty wide receivers, like I don't have a ton of interest. So maybe it is just like Jake Ferguson. Hopefully he catches 2 touchdowns, but I don't think you need to do anything on the Dallas side. Like I said in the opening, yes, they're going to be much lower owned in the captain, but it all adds up. Like CeeDee Lamb's going to get ownership up there. Cooper Rush is going to get ownership up there. These cheap dudes will get on. Aubrey will probably get a little bit of ownership up there. It all starts to add up when you compile it together. And if you just say, you know what, screw it, I'm just going all Texans, combine all that ownership. And if it's not a Dallas Cowboys guy, you have a big advantage on the field. So that's kind of the route I'm going. But again, these are going to be popular captains. So you do need to be, I think, somewhat unique with what you do in the flex, whether it's, making sure put a hard cap on the salary, leaving at least $300, $400, $500 in all your lineups, something like that to be maybe a little bit different. But the main point for me is, again, it doesn't look like any Dallas guy is going to get much ownership, and that's going to hold up true. But when you look at the cumulative number of all the Dallas guys and the captain, it does start to add up. So if you do make the move and fade all those guys, you are gaining quite a bit of leverage on the field.
Yeah, we're projecting for 20% of the ownership or more just to be a captain, still Dallas guys. So if you just committed to the other side, it is a way to get leverage. It's just, people say you're not getting that much. You're getting more than 20%. Like that's the other side is still putting 20% into, not more than 20%, I'm saying, but you're getting different by doing that. And shout out to my guy, Billy, sharp dude, always comes in here, hooks us up with the little nuggets, the tidbits, if you will. I like this one. I needed something to be sold for what if, or he could type thing. Shout out to our guy DJen coming off another big day, saying, the Lions opponents have lost their next game every week this season. Texans last game against the Lions. Just saying, you can make the case for the 4-2.
That's about the only case right there. I mean, that is like the only thing you can hang your hat on if you're going that route. And man, how good are the Lions, by the way? I mean, I know it was the Jaguars, but you got to give Campbell willing to just put up 52 and say, fuck you. We're going to continue to score. What a hero.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the lineman to score, not Amon-Ra to get him.
I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah. It worked out well for Tambo, but not us.
Yeah, it did.
But I got the Uno reverse of that was Sean Payton deciding to do the same thing. Yeah. We're up 31-6. I got the rookie running back, and he wants to chuck 40-yard bombs to Lil Jordan Humphrey. Screw that. That's just the dumbest thing of all time. Literally like a 1% outcome. Anyone but. Come on. All right. Let's just say we are going to make the case. I would say, just from my perspective, I know Title already hit on it. I don't know how much I love Jake Ferguson, but I do like Title's comment of the security blanket thing. That's for sure. Like, I agree there. I think I would probably play it, though, like, man, I guess it's like Dowdle, Rush, and Lamb, maybe Tolbert. I don't think I like Jake Ferguson. I think I like Dalton Schultz on the other side. If I'm throwing a tight end up top there, I don't think I'm playing Aubrey up top. I know people talk about just playing the kicker and moving on. You could use that in the flex. Like, they may just kick field goals if they're down or up or needing them or time running out or whatever. He could be the value play. The trick is going to be when we skip through and get done quarterback, running back, and get to wide receiver, because obviously we have to have a running back conversation first, Title. Any more you want to talk about at captain or quarterback, I feel like they always go together. And then if not, you could take us into running back from there.
Yeah, I mean, the props, like, it's really hard for me to get to Cooper Rush. I get the price tags down there. And CD, 171 is Cooper Rush's passing prop, 58.5 yards for CD Lamb. CD Lamb's 10.8K. That's not great at all. Another thing that stood out, Joe Mixon, if you're looking at the stone and your member over here, you'll see a very bad rushing defense for the Cowboys. Joe Mixon's props 89.5 yards, and I think he's minus 195 to score. Like, it totally makes sense why Joe Mixon is the top captain. I'm going to play some Ferg, I think. 5%. That's over double the field captain. That's something I'm totally fine doing. Rico would by far be my second favorite captain, though. How does all the chalk how do you flip the complete game script? The Cowboys win the game. The Cowboys are leading. It's on Rico's back. Someone's asking about Zeke. Zeke's dusty. We'll get to him in a sec. Don't play him captain. He's fine in the flex, but him I'm not worried about. And then Hunter Lepke, I think that does. Again, I mentioned he's out this week. He got 16 snaps last week, 17 before, 25. He lines up in the backfield sometimes. I think maybe Rico gets a little benefit there. But the main thing why I like him, again, if Cowboys win, which would completely change everything, or how do these Texans guys and Nixon not get there? Cowboys move the football. They keep it on the ground. They convert. And Rico is what's his touchdown prop? One of the best on the slate, plus 135. He'd be my second favorite. But, yeah, I'm going to be eating more chalk at captain. I like the tank that leverage.
Yeah, and this is like something I never care about because the props know that he's in, by the way. So no secret. I mean, everything, it's not just props. I'm just saying example. Like, everybody knows, and I like Lee's comment, like, makes a difference for the pass rush, not so much for the rush D. Hurts just took all the Saquon TD equity from that game, which is true. So Yeah, I mean, Mixon, everybody likes him for good reason. He's certainly going to be in the pool way up there, probably one of my favorites, if not top, but I'm going to look for the leverage options elsewhere. And the Dowdle thing to me makes quite a bit of sense as well. I kind of like that tag. If it is going to be them up, it's going to be through him. And he's kind of uncomfortable. 13-5 in the captain. It doesn't feel good. It already doesn't even feel good to have a Cowboy up top. But if you're doing it, you don't feel like paying for him or Lamb. You feel like paying for Tolbert or Ferguson, like you said, or you feel better about just saying, well, you know what? If I'm going to do it, at least let me get the cheap quarterback who touches the ball every time versus, the other stuff. But I like the Dowdle call, and he's he's like every leverage. He's the opposite of Mixon. He's a Cowboy. He's not one of the receivers that we just talked about. So yeah, I think he's certainly interesting. And he's also kind of in that same price range. Both those guys are really Tank Dell and Dowdle. Two of the dudes right there in that same, they'll have similar type builds, but got to be lower owned captains when the grand scheme of things comes out. So yeah, anything else there, Title? If not, you can go to running backs just in general, both sides.
Yeah, nothing else at the captain. Running back, well, Joe Mixon's everything for the Texans. Like, unless he gets injured, it's really hard for me to click Dare Ogunbowale or any of these names. So he's $3K is Dare. Like, I would need $1,200. So it's Mixon or nothing on the Texans side. And yeah, I mean, I just mentioned Zeke and shit on him. He's valued at $2,600, so like he can't not be in play. Like, who's around him? Dare, Robert Woods, Dameon Pierce, this Jalen Brooks guy, Turpin. But the problem is, I think Zeke gets 15% down there in the flex for a backup running back that hasn't been on the field for more than 13 snaps last week. Again, he should get a couple more because of Lepke. In the trailing game script, though, like, why would Zeke be the guy? He's slow. He's not a great pass catcher. To be honest, I'm not going to have much Zeke. I'm going to have a lot of Rico. Mixon, I don't even know if I'm going to have a lot of Mixon just because the ownership's going to have a lot. So he's a great play. There's nothing about that, but I'm not going to say I'm way overweight or way underweight because, I mean, I'm going to try and build for 20 or less dupes like usual, and fading Mixon's a really easy way to eliminate a lot of dupes, but he's a strong play. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, Hoop, any other thoughts here at running back? Like, the chat's talking a lot about the Texans blow-up builds. You talked about building some 5-1s, 4-2s that way. Would you get to something? And then any quick take on Dameon Pierce, either of you? Like, when maybe Hoop can go first, and a Title, you have something to add. Just the main thing is, I think, people are wondering if he's actually back. Is it going to be him? Will he get any role? Hard to tell. But Hoop, any thoughts at running back that Title didn't cover?
Yeah, the Pierce stuff, who the hell knows? I mean, honestly, and even in like a blowout type script, who the hell knows? Like, I don't know. It's impossible to know. Like, if he starts getting into some of my teams, like, I'll definitely cap it. And I agree with the Zeke thing too. Like, he's a guy that's just going to show up when you run teams. On here, is that the total? Is that what we're actually getting? 9?
Yeah, 9.
It's going to be, like, once you start running teams and start, forcing in like a little more like Tank Dell and some more Nico Collins, like Zeke is going to start showing up at a much higher rate than what did we get, 9% on the dry run. So again, once you go in there and you say, now I want 25% Nico Collins, I want 10% Tank Dell, Zeke is going to be a guy that starts showing up, and I want to cap that for sure, man. Like, a backup running back in a game script where they're potentially playing from behind, it's going to be pretty popular, I'd say. I'm definitely capping what I get on Zeke. I'm open to playing some Dare, not a ton. I just want to cap all these dudes. Like, I don't want a ton of any of them. The Joe Mixon stuff, like Title said, it's like hard to take an overweight stance. Like, an overweight stance is basically all in. You just lock button him because he's going to be so highly owned. Rico, for me, definitely not playing him in captain, and I'll be way underweight in the flex as well. Like, I just at 9K, I don't love it. Like, to me, he's got to find the end zone, and maybe multiple times he's got to outscore a lot of dudes. So don't really like Rico either. Definitely not playing him in captain. And then what are we showing for the ownership on him in the flex? Do you have that up there?
17.
Oh,
we're showing 29. Sorry, 29.
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, that's
we're getting.
It's got to be high. It's probably going to be higher than that. I don't know. Maybe I'm in the mid 20s or something on him, but I'm not going to be overweight on Rico, and I'll be fading him in the captain. It's an underwhelming position for sure, and a lot of plays on the slate are underwhelming. When just talking about the running backs, it's obviously Joe Mixon as much as you can get of him, and whatever with these other pieces.
Yeah, we're getting 72 Mixon in the flex right now, and 27. Well, I mean, we're
all in. We're all in then. Yeah. All in on the dry run, which makes sense.
Quick math, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's how you get leverage. What do we have them at for ownership right now? I've got the Stone up. Looks like 50, 67. It looks like he's about 75 to 80% owned. And so we're all in on the dry run, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just staying with you then, because we can take it through. I got nothing else really at running back, but just to note, I don't remember a slate with this many running back options to discuss.
Yeah.
Usually it's at wide receiver, and crazy enough, we are about to be there for wide receiver. And I think most people think that makes for a better slate because more options to get to, but there's more decisions too, right? Like it makes it tricky when there's this many and you don't know the Dare versus Pierce. You don't know on the other side about the Zeke stuff. The one thing I will say though, Hoop, and you can round out the running back and take us into wide receivers like Turpin. We're getting way more of him as the value versus going to Zeke because flex is flex, right? It doesn't really matter what position. We're getting a similar amount of Jalen Brooks. People are talking about Deuce Vaughn, all this other stuff. Like, do you think Zeke actually even gets ownership, or you think it just, right now is the early run because it seems like people are going to go to Turpin over him if they're just going to take with the optimizer?
I think, again, once you start messing with this and you're going to need more values, assuming you go that route, if you start jamming in more Tank Dell, which I think we all plan on doing, start jamming in more Nico Collins, I think he's going to start. Actually, we could do it. If you go to captain while I'm talking, maybe just go ahead and bump up those guys. Bump up Nico, bump up Tank Dell, and see what that does for the flex. Yeah, just put in like a 25 or something for Nico and then go to Tank Dell and put in 10. And I guarantee you're going to start seeing more Zeke. The wide receivers, though, it's like what you're getting on the Houston side. Obviously, Nico, Tank Dell, Mechie, I think is a solid option. The problem with the rest of the guys is they're somewhat not expensive, but like Xavier Hutchinson's 3,400. Like you got to do a little bit of something at 34. Robert Woods kind of got his position, yanked from him at 2,800. You got to do a little bit something like pull up flex and.
Just making sure I got now flex. So, more about Turpin still 28. Cowboys Zeke gets up to 11. These $200 guys, where'd Zeke got?
Zeke actually went down. It's interesting. Okay,
I'm about to say he was 8.67, so he's about 8. It's just it's because our projections like Turpin.
Yeah.
So it's going to force him in, and you got all the money in the world elsewhere. So and if you don't, he gets you the bump from like Tank to Nico or whatever else it might be, right?
Yep. So for me, comparing those cheap running backs to the cheap wide receivers, like more times than not, just because of DraftKings scoring, I want to go with the cheap wide receivers, and that's the case today. Like, Mechie, I definitely am good with him at 4K. Jalen Brooks at 2K, I'll take chances on him. In what I'm thinking is a trailing game strip, Turpin at 1.2K, good with him. But not a ton of interest in like Hutchinson and Woods. Like they have prices where they gotta at least perform a little bit. Like, so I'll go with the Dallas cheapies over the Houston cheapies. But yeah, as much Nico as I can get. CD Lamb, I don't know. I'll probably be underweight on him, to be honest with you, at 10.8. Like if you're going Houston heavy in the captain and Houston heavy in the flex, like 10.8 for CD Lamb is tough, and he's going to get ownership. He's the one guy that people are like, all right, yeah, Dallas sucks, but it's still CD Lamb. I'll play him. He's going to get solid ownership, so I'll probably be under. Like Title laid out with the what am I thinking? With the props. Yeah, with the props, it's like that's like a 7K wide receiver, not a 10.8K wide receiver, and he's still going to get ownership because of the name. So be underweight on CD, over on the Houston guys, and then probably over on the Dallas value guys in terms of the wide receiver position.
What do you see here, Title? Like I'm trying to look for angles. The only one I could say off the top is just no, even though Mechie's there, like it doesn't seem like people want the Houston options. So to your point earlier, what you brought up about that value, but on the other side, nobody knows how, like we'll have to wait until inactives and everything and assume everything is good. But like Mingo's supposed to be in the mix this week. Turpin, who's the optimizers are pushing him the most because of price and projection is almost the same, but it's not like yesterday, Judy versus Tillman. It was $100. They projected basically the exact same, yet the ownership was 3 or 4X. It's in Showdown. We have money to play with. So if they're all projecting the same, I actually don't care that Turpin is 1,200 and Mingo's 32. It's like the unknown of a guy like Mingo or a Jalen Brooks right in between at 2,000. they're all the same. We're just the projections, fugazi. It's not. It's taken in with all the same consideration and formula we always use. But because no one truly knows, it's still just a median projection, right? So anything on the Dallas side, I guess I'll start you there and then take us over to these what seem like pay-up options, but it's Mechie, X Hutchinson, and Woods on the other side with the studs.
Yeah, getting the Dallas receiver room right, it's definitely going to be tough. Inactives, like you nailed the Patriots stuff. If any of these guys are inactive, that'll definitely be important. If all these guys are somehow in, that's looking at 6 guys. You feel really good about Tolbert and CD. Since Cooks went down, it's been Tolbert wide receiver 2, CD wide receiver 1. Can feel very confident about them. Will be the 2 highest. Feels pretty strong that Jalen Brooks is the wide receiver 3. I'd find that pretty hard to believe it changes. Yeah, Mingo maybe, but Mingo's been really bad like his whole career. I saw some stat where he's one of the worst receivers out there. He probably knows the playbook a little bit, but the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, Brooks has by far been the wide receiver 3, has had 50% of snaps plus. Actually, Ryan Florney, the guy you mentioned earlier, really, really cheap. He outsnapped Turpin last week by double, which is interesting. Turpin only 8 snaps, and now you're adding another receiver in the play. If I do go Turpin, I think I want Cowboys D in a decent amount of them, and it feels really weird, but he is the punt returner. You get the double dip, the low-owned Cowboys defense. It's just really, Turpin might be wide receiver 5. He might be wide receiver 6 on this slate. Again, Florney got way more snaps than him last game. I prefer him at a quarter of the ownership. I honestly even think I liked Zeke more than Turpin, which doesn't feel great. So, again, I don't know what's going on with the receiver room. What I'm going to say is Turpin doesn't have too big of a role. I'm going to say Mingo is pretty much irrelevant. Again, I'm guessing. I'm playing that game. Mingo will be very low owned. He still has to do something at that 3K price tag. Excuse me. I'm playing Brooks. I'm playing Tolbert. CeeDee Lamb, I think, is where I'll be most overweight. I love Tank Dell when we get there, but the CeeDee Lamb in the flex, I think the longer I thought about it, I'm going to go more Nico, or almost all Nico captain. But in the flex, Nico's probably going to be 41%. CD might be 30%. He's more expensive. He has worse props. If someone actually goes nuclear today, I think it's Nico. I can see CD, though. They're down 14. They're down 17 all second half and keep throwing. He gets that 19, 18. He's in the flex. He's only 30%. Then you don't go with Nico or a Tank or something, Cooper Rush, etc. So 30% for CD Lamb. I'm going to overspend in the flex. Not as much in the captain. So I think I'm going to be overweight Nico captain, underweight Nico flex, and vice versa with CD. And I definitely like John Mechie. Ownership's not going anywhere. It's not really high. It looks clear as day. He's going to be the slot receiver. Hutchinson just on the outside. He doubled up Robert Woods last week. I mean, he was good. He was on the showdown winner captain last time. The ownership's not going anything. He was great at Alabama. We talked a lot about him. So, yeah, really easy on the Texan side. It's just Nico, Tank Dell, and Mechie. Other side with the Cowboys, again, how I'm going to rank it, CD, Tolbert, Brooks, I think Florney. But how do you see it, Tambo?
Well, I don't see anything. I just listen, and I think you gave me some great ideas. What I try and do is always take it in and then try and convert it into something for everybody, myself included. I think it's the best way to learn. And you just made, the points you made were the Brooks and Flournoy one. This is interesting, and you could use Shiptimizer for this. You can do it if you're hand building, whatever you're doing. Optimizers are going to give a similar projection to Turpin as the others. The fact that they won't give Flournoy that same projection, by the way, so he won't be as considered in this. But just to note, Turpin and Brooks are getting right now a similar projected ownership and a similar projection, yet optimizers are jamming in Turpin for the savings. It's only $800 though. So you can cap your max on this to say, I only really want the field with Turpin, but I want to make sure I get my leverage on Brooks. You already see him as that. The other thing is you can just save the money. You could say, it's only 1 or 2% that Florida is even going to be owned. Maybe he gets up to 5% by the time it comes around. I just want to make sure I get 10. You're probably going to get about the same number that you had, but when you rank them, that was the order that you wanted them anyway. So as always, what we'll say, projections are a piece of the puzzle, and the best players in the world are starting somewhere with this type of setup, and then not just pressing run and going with it. Like Hoop said, once you start doing this, once I start doing that, things will start to change. He's already anticipating what that change means and what his next move is going to be, like a game of chess. Okay, my next move, when I do that, I got to make sure it doesn't do this. And then he flips for that and set up a rule or whatever it might be. So I think that's a key off of what you just said there. There was a couple things in the chat, though. One, someone said, has the double dip ever happened? Don't know, but it's definitely, a thing.
Calvin Austin did last week or a couple weeks ago, but I don't know if it was on the winner. But I mean, we've seen kick returners or punt returns scored, so
for sure,
happened that way.
Yeah, you're not going to get kickoffs taken back too often because they're just over with now. But the punt returns for sure. This one, I'm a sample size guy. You don't have a big sample size on this, but paid Zeke. Everyone told him he's a loser. Ran Zeke like crazy right after it first happened. Paid Dak. Everyone told him he's a loser. Hoop still believes he is, and that's fair. But, he still ran him out there, let him do whatever he wanted. Maybe there is something to that tonight because definitely everyone said you're an idiot for doing that trade for Mingo when other teams got like Devontae Adams and Hopkins and stuff in similar setups. So that was one I thought was interesting. And then the tight end, the fix, we're headed there next anyway, I think, or pretty soon. But Hoop, any other thoughts at wide receiver for you? Like, what do you got over there?
Nothing more to really add. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I mean, we know that the Houston side, the Dallas side, like you guys talked about, a lot of question marks for sure. It does seem like Brooks is definitely the number 3 guy, but I mean, they have nothing to play for. Their season's over. Like, who knows what they're going to do? The Mingo thing's somewhat interesting, but even like he's 3-2, like he's got to do something. It's not like it's a full on like punt. Like, even if you want to get in on him, like he's got to do something at 3-2. So I don't know. It's a tough slate. There's no doubt about it.
Just whatever you think could happen. If you think it's Mingo, you can have 15% Mingo, and that'll be 7x the field or something. If you think it's Brooks, or I shouldn't say Brooks. People do think it's Brooks. Turpin will get some ownership. I guess Flourney really the other. But don't be surprised if any of them get a 0. Like, if none of them are inactive, that's 6 guys we're looking at. Who in the world knows what Mike McCarthy doesn't even know probably what he's going to be doing later. So I'd probably max 2 of them in the cheapies. But we're also talking very similar builds as people. These cheap Cowboys receivers, and you could throw Zeke in there. The Nikos, the Strouds of the world, the Joe Mixons, expensive Texans, cheaper that. That's why I mentioned CeeDee Lamb, Cooper Rush and stuff. If you want to go them at captain, any Cowboy, you'll be different.
Yeah, you can use these tools as well, too. Like I just showed there, if you want to get Mingo in, I started there. You go down to Mingo, put him a min 10%. We weren't even getting him in the dry run. So it's like you're going to have to force that. If you feel that's something that's going to happen tonight, you can set it up. You're probably not going to get lineups with all of them together anyway, but just in case you did, you could stay on the flex here. You're not going to get him at captain anyway, so don't have to worry about it. You would go down and find the option. If it's Mingo, and who else did you say? Like Brooks is an example, and maybe Turpin, all that sort of cheap range. If you wanted to, and then just make sure that you only get a min-max of 1 in 100% of the lineups that you have them in. So like little things like that. Team stacks, you could set it up so you're only getting so many total players from either side, or total flex, so that you could set up more for 4 2s, 5 1s. But really, Shiptimizer is the key. It's going to be a key again tonight. If you guys want to get in at ShipIt Nation, I should note now, the rest of season deal. So all the way week 12 through 18, the entire playoffs, all the way through Super Bowl, the short slates, the showdown slates, all of that and more, $99 for the rest of the season, $129 if you want Shiptimizer, which is what we just talked about. That alone is the price of an optimizer at most places for 1 month. You're going to get 3 months basically until Super Bowl, have it all included. So check it out. We've got tutorials you can go check out for free right now to see how to do some of that stuff we just talked about. But going back to it, Hoop, do you want to take us into tight end? I'll go back to the dry run here and just see what we're getting. But the Schultz revenge game was brought up. Yeah, look, Schultz heavy anyway.
Yeah, you guys know I love Schultz, so you don't need to talk me into him. Revenge, all that added on. I mean, I like him either way. Probably more of a flex play. I don't really see myself getting much of him in the captain. I think he's fine in terms of Ferguson. Probably, when you factor in price, my favorite Cowboys play on the slate, and I agree with Title. Like, if I was going to play one, and I'm probably not, to be honest with you, full disclosure. I mean, I'll have all my stuff up after the show over at shipitnation.com, player pool, cores, what I plan on doing at captain. But if I was going to play one Dallas captain, it would probably just be Ferguson. Give me a cheap guy that I feel pretty good with. I'll be able to get all my Texans guys around him. I like the price at 58, so he'll probably end up being my highest owned Cowboy tonight at 5,800. I'll have a lot of Schultz. Really like Schultz at 5K. Good price tags on these guys. 5.8 for Ferguson, 5K for Schultz on a slate where scoring could be a little lower. Like, man, like just these guys getting 10, 11 could be big, really big for this slate. So in on both of them. And then I guess maybe a little of this Cade Stover. But that would be more I said it again, CG. Why is it in my head? CJ Stroud captain teams, where Stover would be a little more valuable. But he's 1,600. He's fine. But I'm not messing with like Schoonmaker or anything like that. But I really like Ferguson and Schultz.
Yeah, I will go back to it now because I know sometimes we mix it up. We already did captains, but like I just really struggle with Ferguson. I know you guys both like him, so maybe you'll be right on it. I'm just reeling on from yesterday, but like I don't even see them scoring enough points. And if it's lower scoring, I think that like there's so many dudes that can crush them there. I do like a balanced build on this slate. Well, everybody tries to figure out which $1,000 wide receiver, like the whole exercise we just did. But like, what is the setup where you get Ferguson to the top? It's one touchdown in a low scoring game.
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably not playing it, to be honest, but like if you wanted a Dallas guy, he would be my favorite. The setup for him to be the winner is like him getting, obviously he has to, worst case scenario, let's say he gets like 13 or 14. You just need all the Houston guys. You need Stroud, you need Mixon, you need Nico Collins. It's one of those slates where you just need a cheap capping to get like the 4 high scoring guys on the slate. He does have, multiple touchdown upside, but again, it's not a strong play.
I feel like you need him more in like a shootout though. I feel like Dallas needs to show up. He scores because I feel like what the normal feel for me would be it's the lower scoring game. 13's enough, and you just need that balanced build that fits some of the Houston studs. But it's like if the Houston studs did enough, there might be just something there to make it fit. Obviously, anything can work. I'm just saying that's why I struggle with, at least with Schultz. My take is that if Houston puts up 21 points, 24 points, or if they put up a lower number, it would be on that side that you think it would come from. I think I'll play Schultz and even Fairbairn, who I didn't mention earlier, but I'll play the Houston to just not get the offense going and get shut down a little bit on the road, maybe slowed down, but not losing the game. And they would be in a similar price point that I would go up there versus playing the defense that I think others will get to. I think it was Cody Main. He does the showdown stuff, and he threw it up that it's like 11% of the time these defenses, when they were this expensive, it was actually like they got played more in captain when they got more expensive, because people, well, that means they're going to hit more is what they looked at, but they only averaged about 8.2 fantasy points for 6K plus. That's not very good. So I really struggle with that one as well, but I'll kick it to you, Title. It's more flex talk anyway, but like there's a lot of, even this slate has like Tegan Quinerino, Luke Schoonmaker, Cade Stover, like all these dudes, Brevin Spanford, the law firm, the new age law firm. So what's the thoughts here? Anything else that you've got at this position?
It's clearly Ferguson's my favorite Cowboy in the slate. I'll have plenty of Ferguson, love the price, think he's a good football player. If all these Dallas value fails, if like it just gets you like Mixon, CD, Nico. We saw it almost yesterday with Disley for a little while. It had like Chase, Higgins, Herbert. Disley was just in that mid-tier, same price. And then Schultz I'm fine with. I mean, if you look at the props, quite a bit better for Ferguson than Dalton Schultz. 2 catches higher. The odds obviously plus money on the over for Ferg. Under on Schultz, but 2.5 versus 4.5. Higher receiving prop on the Ferg side as well. I think they throw more too. Like if they're trailing, they'll drop back a lot more. Both low owned at captain, but you can't, if you're playing a lot of lineups, you can't cross off these backup tight ends. Like Schoonmaker, 11 snaps. This Brevin Spanford guy, 6 snaps last week. It was a little more previously for this Spanford. But again, this Hunter Lepke guy, he lines up at multiple positions. He was in 2 tight end sets with Ferguson. So I do think the Schoonmaker and Ford get a little more snaps. Is it fun? No. But is it fun to roster any of these guys down below? And they'll be like 1/10 of the ownership as Zeke, as Turpin, etc. So I don't love it, but they'll be on the field. And then you mentioned Cade Stover, who they'll also be on the field. Last decent amount of 2 tight end sets they're in. 29 snaps last week, 35, 34, 31. Again, these are backup tight ends. They're like 6 on the target tree in terms of their first option reads, but who knows? 3-4 points at 1% could be enough. It's clearly Ferg and Schultz at the position.
Yeah, I like the call. And to clarify my stance on your take, tons of Ferguson in the flex. Like he's got the props, like you say, rack him up. The way Schultz gets there is by some sort of, whether it is a revenge narrative, that's not why I'd be interested, but I expect Houston to score points still. I think they still win this game, even if it is closer or lower scoring. And that's why I brought that up from the captain perspective. From the flex, like the call out there, I'll have a ton of Ferguson. I don't mind those backups. It's just I like the idea of these balanced builds a little bit more too versus trying to figure it out. I think you can do whatever you want, Daniels. Like you mentioned this in something like a 1 to 20 max. I don't mind just going with your stance. Like you do or you don't. I said this all the time in Showdown. It's one of my biggest takeaways. And I think another one that just people don't understand. You could have 1,000 lineups in Showdown for some reason. Let's say you're allowed, nobody else is. You can still get crushed in Showdown. If you're on the wrong thing in Showdown, it doesn't matter if you have 5, 50, 500, or 5,000 if you're not on the right stuff. So that's why I like building in sets in some cases, some higher owned, some lower owned, some whatever, like however you're seeing the game go. But in 20 max, play lighter, play tighter. If that's the angle you like in, I would certainly say it's fine to go with that. So Hoop, anything else at tight end you want to talk about? If not, you could take us into just quick defense kickers because tonight D priced up for Houston.
Yeah, nothing else to really add at tight end. I mean, there's not many viable options there. And again, just to reiterate the point, I think we all kind of agree, certainly in the flex for both those guys, very strong plays at their price point. In terms of the defense, Texans is priced up and they're going to get ownership. I'll definitely be underweight on Texans defense at 6,200. As much as I dislike the Dallas offense today, I don't need to force in Texans defense and play them like 40% at 6,200. So seems more times than not these priced up defenses kind of fail. So I'll have some, but nowhere near what the field has. And then absolutely love Fairbairn tonight at 5,400. We always talk about it, with kickers. You don't need to game log watch all positions, but kickers, I want to see the team's tendencies. And Houston is willing to kick. I mean, 4 field goals at 4, 4, 3, 3, 3, 3. So he's had at least 3 field goal attempts in 6 straight games, 13 points, 9, 11, 12, 12, 16. He has a 20 fantasy point game in week 2, a 17 in week 1. He has big upside. So I really like him. Like him a lot more than Aubrey at 52, and they're kind of getting similar ownership. So I'll have a lot of Fairbairn tonight. I'll have some Aubrey. Aubrey will be less than Fairbairn, and then probably like very limited amount of Dallas defense, and then underweight Texans defense at 6,200.
Fairbairn, it's such an interesting name when you say it like that. The thing about him is he has like a better ceiling than almost all the Cowboys, except for Lamb. And Lamb's ceiling, you could argue, is based off of a medium projection versus what his output's been in the past. And it's a completely different quarterback in there now. So who knows how that's going to shake out. Any other kicker D extra thoughts from you there, Title? And then we'll sort of just round this thing up and get to FanDuel.
Just like Hoop, I'm definitely underweight Texans. Maybe I haven't hit the full fade. Like, I think they're going to be completely over-owned. Give me Ferg, give me Fairbairn, Aubrey, Schultz, Tolbert, Mechie, all those people I just listed were cheaper. Both kickers are, of course, great, but I mean, Cowboys defense might be 10% owned today. It's random stuff. That's why I mentioned the Turpin Cowboys stuff. The double dip. Do I love Turpin? No, but one play changes the whole game. Someone mentioned Micah Parsons earlier. Am I worried about him? No, not when I'm breaking down the game, but if I'm trying to make a case to play Cowboys D, Micah Parsons there helps your case a bit. So I like them all at ownership except the Texans.
I love that call out. That's the exact way, right? If I'm against it, screw Micah Parsons. Don't matter. We're not afraid of him. When I'm making a case through the D, you know what? I was just thinking Parsons is back. Might as well be a thing. Let's do that and try it out. So Jordan knows the secret. Last night I had 69 lineups. People think you need 150 to win. You just need the nice number of 69 to play it out, and you always get the W. That's what happens. So what's Hoop onto? Tell us, Adam. What was Hoop onto here?
Hopefully something good, not bad.
I know you were looking at something pre-show that was very interesting. You just wouldn't tell me what it was.
I still don't know. You made me realize I talk to myself more than I thought.
We hopped on the show and Hoop didn't know I was here, and I was just listening into what he was doing, and he's talking to himself. And, that's interesting. That's interesting. Okay. And he's clicking through it. So he's finding out info. He's got the secret stuff over there, guys. So he'll have all the secret stuff up and more on the site under Showdown. He does his entire player pool. We'll have the core report. The stone is already up. We just didn't bring it up for the show. Obviously need a lot more likes, engagement, things like that. We're trying to get after it here and get these subscribers up. So help us out there if you can. But let's talk about FanDuel real quick. Hoop, is there anything else there you want to mention when it comes to FanDuel?
Soft pricing besides like two guys. So Joe Mixon is 16.5 and Nico Collins is 15,000 flat. Everyone else is 13.5 and below. Joe Mixon going to get a lot of MVP ownership. I think Nico Collins at 15K could get squeezed a little bit, and people don't like the wide receiver MVP play over on FanDuel. I think he's a really, really good play in the MVP. Nico Collins, that is, at 15K. CJ Stroud, 13,000. That's too cheap. Cooper Rush, 12. Rico, 11.5. That's probably where he should be. Then Tank Dell, 10.5. Ferguson, 10K. And then our guy Schultz all the way down at 8,500, just way, way too cheap. Kickers and defenses are all kind of in that same range. Priced up Houston defense a little bit at 9.5K. And then all the cheap guys that we talked about are down here. Zeke at 8K, Turpin 8K, Pierce 75. Mechie at 7K definitely stands out as way too cheap. Mechie at 7K, then Jalen Brooks at 6,500. So two really cheap, solid plays. You're going to get your teams are going to look like all-star teams. Even leaving like big chunks of salary on the table, it's going to be all-star teams with guys like Stroud at 16K, Tank Dell 10.5, Schultz at 8,500. So poorly priced and a bad format over there on FanDuel. But hopefully the saying holds true tonight that FanDuel sucks, but Hoop crushes. So that's what we'll be looking for tonight.
Hey, I got the job done almost on FanDuel yesterday.
Yeah.
I like FanDuel, and I said it on the show yesterday too. I said I'm playing FanDuel, and it happened to be your Lions that came through. So
yeah.
Got to get back to it tonight. I do think just going to you title here, coming around full swing on some of these MVP or captain plays on both sides. I think Dell, Collins, Mechie, Schultz, and Fairbairn are all pretty solid over there, and you just leave out Mixon and Stroud. I know they're the best MVPs for sure, and you're wasting money, but you can actually play some of these all-star teams in a different way just because of MVP over there and get away with it. And just thinking back now, even too, for DraftKings, Mechie, you mentioned it earlier, was literally just the captain. I know there was no Nico Collins. I watched the games too. I'm saying that it's different though. It can get you a different balanced build. What if they do just hold back on Collins first game back a little bit, or the D steps up for him and tries their best on him, and that's why we already like Dell? That could just as easily be Mechie. What if the defense holds up on the other side on Lamb and just says, yeah, it's Cooper Rush, but we're really going to make him either actually rush or figure it out with somebody else not named CeeDee Lamb. So there's that too. And that just makes it easier to get to some of these balanced captains while avoiding some of the crap down below that we're just trying to stop, just making it work for no reason. Kayshon Boutte or Boutte or whatever one people call him yesterday wasn't even a consideration on the slate until there was no value. That's kind of the tricky tonight. People don't love their captains, so they're just making value work for the Mixons, the Strouds, and the Nico Collins plays up top. Any other final thoughts from you?
Yeah, I don't mind the Mechie captain on DraftKings. I mean, defenses will be like Nico coming back obviously hurts Mechie's target share, and it hurts Tank's maybe a little, but the eyes go on them, so then they're more open. And again, we talked about it in the last showdown. Mechie back at Alabama was a complete stud. This dude knows how to ball. The only thing I got to add on FanDuel, we have about 57% of ownership at MVP between two guys, Mixon and CJ Stroud. You play anybody but those two, you're competing with 32. What awful math. 42% of people, roughly 43% right there. So that's how I'd approach it. That, and then good luck guessing the cheap guy, but someone's going to come through.
We're numbers guys over here. We've got you covered. No, just teasing. The math is hard when you got to figure it out on the fly, on the thing. But your point was very valid, and that's what I said. I get it. And the good news is over on FanDuel, I always say it sucks, but hoops crushes. You can go underweight on those guys and just try and get the versions you like of them. I'll play Mixon up top over on FanDuel, but it probably leaves $5,000 to $6,000 on the table, and it probably just builds out with something that makes sense, that's a little bit different, a little more unique. So if it is at least I've got that for me. But other than that, I just don't want the perfect 60K filled out lineup with, but it looks so good on paper, to everybody that's playing it. And so unfortunately, even though you love it, you have to make some pivots off that just to be able to give yourself a chance versus just chopping it up a million ways. It's up to you. It's your money, just how I'm thinking about it. But even last night, part of my set was in that I was first based on how the game ended. It just didn't matter. One chop was for worse, 3,700. The other was that was my sort of 20 lineup portfolio. That was just those types of lineups. And it was I just think these are really good. they leave a little bit on the table, but not much, and it's going to turn into this if it happens. So that's the way it can go. Hoop, final thoughts from you before we get out of here.
No, I mean, it's an ugly game, but there's still money to be had. So we'll have all our content up. You got the promo there, NBA 50. If you guys want to get in, 50% off your first month, all access. You can include the Shiptimizer as well. And then we have the rest of season NFL, right? Not NFL, the rest of season football packages. Very discounted rate, 99 and 129. So 99 without optimizer, 129 with optimizer, and it gets you all the way through the Super Bowl. I mean, it's the most affordable rate in the industry. Love to have you join our community. A lot of big wins, not only from our team, but our community as well. So it's a good time to join in and join this community with the momentum in our favor.
Yeah, everything's up, going up now for the stuff tonight, but like what you'll get is all here between college football. Even if you can't play that though, the showdown stuff, the main, all of that stuff that you're getting for 99. Like I always look at it like this, like people are playing $20 a day even. Let's say you're playing $20 a day in DFS on a other sport. I mean, the all access is on for half price, but you're still playing a bunch of money per month, $600, $500 if you take some days off, all that. Over the next 3 months of football, if you're playing $1,000 to $1,500, $99 is really nothing. Just being in the community alone in that Discord is super helpful. This does come with full Discord. Only the weekly is where we exclude it. So hopefully this helps some people. Hope to see you inside the community. That's going to do it for this one, guys. For Hoop, for Title, and for myself, ToeTagginTambo, let's ship it.